Hi, everyone. 11:30. We want to make sure that we're always trying to be respectful of people's time. So we want to start on time and hopefully finish up before the time is up, so we have plenty of time for questions. So just wanted to thank everybody for being here. Hope you guys all had a great holiday season with your families. I know I did. It's great to always be with family. And for those of you with kids, it's really nice to have them back in school. I don't know if you agree with that, but anyway. On that note, today we kind of want to talk about the functions within a business that may not necessarily be core to your business, but a necessary part of your business to make sure that you're staying on top of current trends. And we're going to be talking about sort of that advantage of taking some of those functions and outsourcing them. And so today I've got with me, well, of course I can grab the slides here. Today we've got our head of HR and our head of outsourced HR, Steph Hand, and Steph will introduce herself more when we get to her section. I'm Scott Kroeger. I'm the shareholder in charge of our technology division, and I'll be sort of kicking us off. And then we've had Steve Nebbia, who is our consulting director and head of our outsourced accounting practice today to talk to you about those three specific areas of the business that we feel is best for outsourcing. So here's what we're going to talk about today, sort of maximizing efficiency really in those three areas. So the HR function, the accounting function, and the technology function. Within our different sections, we'll be talking about the cost benefit of having that function in-house versus outsourcing it, or having that sort of be a hybrid managed where we can take some of the features and functions of those areas and do them in conjunction with somebody who's doing that in-house, as well as leveraging that expertise for growth and compliance. And at the end, questions and answers. Want this to be very conversational. That's kind of more our style. If there are questions, please put them in the chat. We've got some help here with being able to stop and answer those questions. So we'd love to have this be conversational. So please jump in. General benefits of outsourcing. So ultimately, the big thing that we see a lot of our businesses realize is that cost efficiency. So, for most businesses, that employees are the biggest cost item, and where that can be maximized is typically where we encourage clients to consider that outsourcing. In effect, from a cost perspective, reduce those overhead costs. Expertise. Ultimately, we're dedicated to our crafts and making sure that we are the experts in certain areas. So I think that is one thing that's spending time and making sure that you're hiring and have access to expertise. It's especially important when you can hire a slice of a number of brains versus just hiring one brain. We feel that sort of multifaceted approach brings that expertise to the table, and we're constantly staying on top of trends, attending conferences, and when we start seeing stuff from our clients, those things that are relevant for other clients, making sure that we can share those best practices. And then scalability and flexibility. I think today more than ever with sometimes it's hard to find employees, sometimes it's not hard to find employees. It is that ability to scale up and down depending on what happens with the business conditions and business climate that is most important, is that ability to kind of turn it up or turn it down. That flexibility is very important for businesses. So sort of the overview of the general benefits of outsourcing. Continuing on with that, it allows businesses to focus on their core activities. Whatever it is you do to make money, that's what you need to focus on. And in particular, a lot of the functions that we're talking about are ancillary support functions. Risk management. In a lot of cases, taking that risk out, whether it's a cybersecurity risk and taking that off your plate, whether it's making sure that you've done the proper background checks when hiring people, reducing those risks. There's a number of risks that outsourcing can take off the plate. When you go from having some of that in-house to outsourcing that. Lastly, improve service quality. Again, I think if you're hiring a professional service provider, their whole business is predicated on providing top quality service. So if you find those providers that are good at providing that service and are good at communicating, that service quality will improve from that function area. At a high level, this is how Lutz is viewing those functions within a business that are not core to the business, but are absolutely critical. So as we've talked about, that accounting function, bookkeeping, controlling, CFO. Steve's going to talk about that in detail as we get to that section next. But accounting is one of those functions we view. I'm going to lump the next two together, sort of that IT and data analytics function. From an IT perspective, whether businesses like it or not, they're becoming technology businesses. So whether that's keeping the bad guys out or whether that's figuring out how to leverage technology to do something that used to take out 10 hours and make that 1 hour, that's where IT is coming into play. Data analytics as well, just getting better, more real-time access to data to make better, faster decisions. That's also becoming more important to businesses. Human resources and HR strategy, being in compliance with the law, making sure that there's, ultimately happy employees equal happy customers, and culture is incredibly important for businesses. That's where that HR component comes into play. And lastly, we're not going to focus on this today, but from a 401k perspective, there are new tools and functions that are available to customers and clients, pooled employer plans being one of those, that can help not only reduce costs from an audit perspective, but reduce that fiduciary risk mitigation and a lot of the compliance that comes with managing those 401ks. That can also be outsourced using those pooled employer plans. If you have questions about that, definitely email us after this, and we'll provide some contact information, and we'll get you in contact with the right people to learn more about that pooled employer 401k plan. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over. We're going to start off from an HR perspective, and we're going to kick it over to Steph, who's going to introduce herself and the outsourced HR function. Yeah, sure. Jump into these questions. Thank you.
The slides. Oh,
yes, we can show the slides. Okay, yeah, for sure. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
You bet.
Hi, everyone. As Scott mentioned, I'm Steph Hand. I'm the HR shareholder here at Lutz. I'm in my 20th year. Most of that time has been spent overseeing our internal HR function, and now I'm spending most of my time leading our outsourced HR offering. We offer support and strategy to small to mid-sized businesses and really businesses of all sizes. So look forward to talking about the HR side of things. As Scott mentioned, whether it's HR, tech, or accounting, we're going to be talking about, when you might want to consider outsourcing for these areas, what can be outsourced within each of those three areas, and then providing some client examples. So in thinking about outsourced HR, and also as Scott mentioned, this could be talking about outsourcing anywhere from a single project to the entire function. So keep that in mind as we're talking through. So here are some different times or circumstances where you may want to consider outsourcing your HR or parts of your HR. The most obvious one is if you do not have someone fully dedicated to the HR role or HR function. And for many of you, you may be a small to mid-sized organization that it probably doesn't make sense yet for you to hire someone on site, and maybe it won't if you're staying at that present employee size. We typically see people placing an HR person anywhere from, let's say, 50 to 75 just as a general target. But that really depends on your industry and what you have going on from the legal side of things. So for those of you that don't have someone dedicated, some lucky winner is wearing the HR hat. Could be the owner, could be the office manager, one of you in the accounting role. And my guess is that you may not be trained in HR. You may not love HR. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Is that fair, guys?
I think that's fair.
Just as I couldn't step in on accounting, it's tough sometimes when you are having to wear those multiple hats, or HR may be spread across a number of you. And chances are you may just be really reacting to what needs to be done and handling the minimum things. Another circumstance may be that you have a new individual to the HR role. And so one-person HR teams, that can be very tough. As Scott was mentioning, that is having one specific skill set. And so unless you've hired a unicorn, you may not have someone that loves to handle the compliance side and also the strategy side of things. So we're also seeing a lot of organizations moving someone from another role into the HR role without any training. And so there's opportunities to outsource some of that training and development for your HR professional. If you're experiencing high employee turnover, or low engagement, this is definitely a sign that you may need some assistance in the HR, on the HR front. People are getting more and more complex. That's probably the nicest way to say things after the pandemic. So, even if you have 10 people, you may have some people challenges. And so I think it is around that 10, 20, 30 that even though you don't have someone, you feel that pain a little bit. So if you're not proactively focused on your talent and how you're keeping people, it will be very difficult to attract and keep them in today's labor market. Many of you have compliance concerns when it comes to HR. Where are your risks? We hear the term over and over, I don't know what I don't know. That's probably the most common quote we hear over and over and over. And as you know, we have a lot of different labor laws changing. With the new administration, we're going to see even more. So this is definitely something to keep your eye on. For those of you that have smaller organizations, you'll have labor law changes at employee sizes of 15, 20, 25, 50, and 100. So just staying on top of those as you grow is important. If you're recruiting for critical positions, hard to find positions, or just even trying to navigate through today's labor market, and it's no surprise to any of you that things have really changed on this front. It's no longer just easy to post a position and have amazing candidates just coming right up to you as it used to be. It really takes a more proactive approach to recruiting. If you are preparing for growth, if you are an entrepreneurial-owned business, or you're expecting some acquisitions, or just in growth mode, this can be a really great time to set up a really strong HR infrastructure to make sure that when you do grow, you can be efficient and effective and not spend your time on turnover and dealing with turnover costs. Another trend we see is underperforming managers. When we have challenges at the manager level, this can be because we have taken a really technical person and decided they should be a manager now because that's the next natural step, without thinking about the fact that a manager position is a completely different position. So that may be a sign that your manager level could use some attention, and that's a really critical position for retaining your employees. And then finally, if you have leadership changes or ownership transition, whether that's one generation to the next or just bringing new people into that leadership team, it's a great opportunity to reset expectations and think about your management, how you can be more effective and more efficient on the HR side. And for those of you that are HR folks, there are at least a handful on the call. You are only one person or two people, and so you may have a big project that needs some extra supplementing. So these are a few times where you might want to consider outsourcing. So as far as what can be outsourced in HR, I think we're up against a little bit of a challenge in that when people think about HR, they often think about the compliance side. There's so much more that goes into HR than that. And so we want to talk about, it's probably easiest to talk about three different buckets here: the compliance, culture-related items, and coaching. So typically people or companies will come to us when they're nervous about compliance. Again, they don't know what they don't know. And there's a lot of things that we can assist them with, whether it's federal and state labor laws that are changing. This can get even more difficult if you have remote employees or if you're working out of different states. So staying on top of those can be a challenge. Workplace policies and procedures. Employees have so many options these days. So trying to stay on top of having clear policies, but also competitive policies. Let's say a PTO policy, for example, and how to change that with the new sick law leave here in Nebraska. How does that, interplay with your PTO policy, things of that nature. We run into a lot of people that say, I have an employee handbook. It's been sitting on the shelf for years and I don't touch it because it's really not really relevant. But yeah, we do have one. We just never use it. It's 100 pages long, so helping you get a reasonable handbook that is reflective of your culture, making sure your personnel files and everything else are up to speed. And then we see a lot of people concerned about discipline and terminations. How are we setting expectations with people? How do we know when it's okay to term people, and what does that process look like? So it's important to help provide your employees that fair fair experience through compliance, and also help you stay out of hot water. So most of the times, if you are trying to handle HR, these are the things you're reacting to. It's the culture piece that is the proactive, that is really our goal, is how do you calm all of those compliance fires and ease your mind so you can sleep at night, and then really focus on the culture piece so that you can keep, retain, and attract awesome people. So as Scott said, and I was planning to mention as well, we really have been on board with the happy employees equal happy customers, adage. And, so really thinking about how you're treating your employees will have an immediate effect on your profitability and how you meet business objectives. So under the culture bucket, things like your recruiting strategy, how are you interviewing people? How are you posting your jobs and your job descriptions, and what is the candidate experience like? Do you have an efficient and effective onboarding and offboarding process? Or do you just pick that up every time and say, no, what do we need to do again when we have a new person? And you don't have a real efficient process to it. Having an orientation process is really important. There's a lot of stats that show that if you can spend a little extra time on the front end, you will gain a lot in retention. Most of us or many people are just in a hurry to get people to work. Welcome, here's your hour of orientation, get to work, and that doesn't always help us keep people for the long term. As far as the feedback process goes, I think many of us have seen a lot of getting pretty loose during the pandemic time, followed by the labor market where employees really had the upper hand. So now a lot of organizations are really trying to kind of move that pendulum to the other side, to reset expectations, hold people accountable, set new expectations. And this does require feedback and coaching and having a process in place. Making sure your benefits are competitive and your compensation, and then your training pieces. So anything that falls under that retention and engagement, flexibility piece is really important. Finally, coaching is another thing that can be outsourced, which is really just how are you getting the support that you need to deal with things that are going on. If you are handling HR on your own without any training, you can have a phone a friend, a sounding board, that support that you need to either be developed in the HR role or to help answer employee relations questions, work through challenges and issues, technical questions, making sure employees are engaged and retained, and then things like compensation benchmarking. And again, you can also outsource different projects, whether it's looking at compensation, strengths facilitation, Clifton strengths facilitations, compliance reviews, some of those one-off types of projects. And finally, just a couple of examples of some things we're helping clients with from the HR side. This particular client has 35 employees. They have had a reduction in their workforce due to some changes, and recently transitioned an HR professional out of their organization because of those changes, but also due to underperformance. And we are seeing some trends of some underperformance and how to handle that. And are there also opportunities there if you do have someone underperforming, or is there just another way to bring in that HR support and expertise? We are now providing this client with on-site HR presence. So we are on site on a weekly basis. We have direct access to their employees so they can contact us, taking some of that off the hands of the leadership team. And really, we're working to build and enhance their HR infrastructure. So some things we worked on are onboarding and offboarding, making sure their benefits are competitive. We actually administer their benefits in combo with their broker, making sure they have maximized that broker relationship. We've implemented a new feedback process, compensation benchmarking, recruiting strategy, et cetera. So we are a sounding board and coach them for HR matters and keeping them on top of compliance. So this is an example of us actually executing the HR work. We can also assist people and coach the ones on site who are executing the work. So we kind of can run the gamut there. So this is a client we've been working with for the last year and a half. They have 100+ employees, and they moved a current employee into an HR role. This employee had been with the organization for quite some time, but they had no prior HR experience. And so we have been working with this individual over the last year and a half to build her HR skill set and knowledge, help her navigate through different HR matters, providing coaching and training, assisting with compliance matters. They operate out of different states, so multi-state HR law and employee relations. We've been able to bring in Clifton Strengths coaching and facilitation to gain more cohesion within their leadership team. And I've also worked with our talent team to place permanent and temporary positions in HR and accounting. So those are a couple of examples where we can execute the work again, as well as coach the person executing the work. We work in all industries. I would say we are seeing some trends in not-for-profit, construction, professional services, food industry and restaurants, and healthcare. But again, we can, if you have people, you might have some people challenges. So really, anyone applies. So, and to wrap up, if you find yourself, in any of those circumstances on the people front and you'd like to talk, we do offer a complimentary HR assessment where we can look at where you might have some risks or gaps and also opportunities to see how we might be able to assist. Anything you'd add about the HR piece?
Great job.
Covered it.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Handing over to Scott.
Okay, we'll talk about the geekier side of things. Some people like to talk about this. Some people hate to talk about this. But like I said before, we really are seeing a lot of businesses sort of being forced to become technology businesses to make sure that they stay competitive. Because a lot of the efficiencies that come with technology really help to stay competitive from a pricing perspective and to deliver good quality service to your clients. So, when do you consider outsourcing it? A lot of businesses are in a situation where they either have internal IT, in which case sometimes there's turnover in that position. Sometimes there are more things that need to be done than that 1, 2, 3 person can do. And so there's outside help that's needed at times. So when you're in those situations, it's either that situation or you've decided that outsourcing it is right for you, and maybe your current provider is not cutting it. Those are the times where you can consider outsourcing IT. But a lot of times, this cybersecurity concerns that's what's on everybody's mind. It's how do I keep the bad guys out? How do I make sure that they're not going to shut down my business? Where are they coming from? What are the things that I can do to stay on top of that? And I think that's where going to somebody who their whole job is to make sure that they attend the classes and make sure that they lay out very simple terms as to how you can make sure you dot the I's, cross the T's to make sure that you keep the bad guys out. That's one reason that we've seen people really want to come and outsource their IT. The latest technology. So, a lot of people, there's a lot of us have friends that are sort of early adopters that have the newest, latest, greatest technology. From a business perspective, we're never wanting to make sure that we are putting you in a situation where you're doing something that's not going to improve your bottom line. We work with a bunch of accountants. So I think our interesting value proposition is it's always encouraged us to make sure that our full goal, whether it's when it is providing outsourced IT, is to make sure that the business is maximizing its ability to make money. So we're never going to put you in the latest and greatest. However, when technology does come about, when it does get mature enough, has had material impacts on taking processes like I talked about before, taking a 10-hour process and making it an hour or 30 minutes or 10 minutes. And when you do that 10-hour process 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, that is when we start to see major improvements in efficiency. So making sure that we evaluate and making sure that you pay attention to those things that are, and making you aware of those things that are out there, kind of back to what Steph said, you don't know what you don't know. Our job is to at least present those to you to make sure that you can evaluate that to see if that's going to be an improvement for your business. Business continuity, that's a big thing is what happens if? What happens in a power outage? What happens if a tornado hits the building? What happens if we get hacked? What happens if, making sure that we think through those scenarios to understand what that's going to cost the business to determine what we should spend to make sure that we have that business continuously running. System knowledge limited to 1 or 2 resources. We've seen that a lot in businesses where we come in and there's one person who knows the system, and if that person leaves, then we're at a loss for information. We're able to come in and provide a backstop to that person and provide that safety net that if that one person if something happens to that one person, if they decide to take another job, we have that knowledge and can be a backstop for businesses and be that security blanket that they won't be left in the dark with that information that currently exists in one or two resources. Technical debt. This is one where a lot of companies are just, I know I need to upgrade this. I know that this has been out of date, but we have to continue focusing on this. At some point, that technical debt needs to be paid off, or it's currently hindering operations, that the computers are running slowly, or that you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get a basic task done. That's when you should raise your hand and say, how do we get help making that more efficient and reducing that technical debt? That in-house team, again, a lot of times depending on how many are on that internal team, if they need help or that expertise or that capacity. Tech people like to run in packs, and if they have a phone a friend, and that to steal Steph's comment, we do have that ability to be that phone a friend, be that expertise to relieve that pressure. In a lot of cases, they haven't taken a vacation in a very long time because they are the sole provider from a technology perspective. We provide that ability to have that technology team, person or teams experience be a whole lot better when we can augment them. And then again, that lack of in-house technical experience, if there's just, hey, we need somebody to come in and provide us with best practices and not use technical jargon, but tell us this stuff in simple terms. That's what we do best, and that's when you should consider outsourcing your IT. So what can be outsourced? A lot of it, the basics. A lot of people think of that technical support. How do I call somebody who can help me? Call or email somebody who can help me and get that resolution fast. We've kind of architected our response to be as fast as possible. Our average answer time is 30 seconds or less on the phone. And the reason for that is that everybody has, with how fast everything is moving, when something gets in your way, you need to remove it as fast as possible so you can go back to doing what you're doing to make money. So we've really architected our solution to be that quick help desk. There are times where we need to come on site and fix physical hardware or install a new system. But that's another thing that can be outsourced. Managing that entire network. So everything that's in that closet that nobody is, everybody's scared to go into, we go in and manage everything that's within that closet. And then managing that whole experience end to end. End user support. I mean, I think that's one thing that we've really leaned into is that we realize that by the time somebody calls us, they're already annoyed enough that they, have to call us. Our job is to make sure that we take that issue, own that issue to the end, make you aware that, hey, everybody has this issue. We're happy to help. And providing that top level customer service is really what we've geared our staff to be able to do. And then ultimately vendor management. So there are a ton of technology vendors. Most of you probably have a lot of pieces of software, a lot of pieces of equipment on site. Managing that whole vendor experience and being that one call delivers a lot of peace of mind to people that they can just make that one call. Security. I'm not going to go into super detail on all of these, but at the end of the day, the message you need to take away from this presentation is security has a ton of layers. And it's not just one thing that is going to keep you secure. It's a whole multitude of things. So it's being able to come in and go through that checklist that your insurance company handed you that says, hey, if you want cyber insurance, answer this 100-point questionnaire, and you better get them all right. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to provide you with cyber insurance. It's helping you through that whole process, holding your hand and saying, you need to pay attention to this. This is equivalent to a door being unlocked. This is okay, but making sure you are in a good posture from a security perspective to make sure that the bad guys don't walk in the front door. And lastly, from a consulting perspective, this is where we come in and help you figure out, again, kind of like Steph said, once you get the basics on the left side done, then we can talk about the great stuff. Where are you taking this company? Where is this company going to be in 5 years? If you're not growing, you're dying as a company. So how do we help you use technology to your advantage to make sure that you're staying at the forefront and being at the top of your game regionally and nationally? But that includes that technology strategy from a budgeting perspective. The accountants have made sure that we are putting 5-year budgets in front of clients to make sure that there are no surprises from a spend perspective. Using and leveraging and identifying those places where the cool buzzwords can help you, artificial intelligence, automating processes, getting access to data that you couldn't before from your systems. That's that layer that's very exciting, and we're making a lot of progress with our clients on. And then sort of the compliance, the business reviews, and then those policy creations that make sure that the whole thing is tightly managed. I'm going to run through a couple of client examples. First client example, we've got a professional services firm that we've worked with for the last 10 years. They've got about 65 employees. They do not have internal IT. We are their entire IT department. So full service support with that 30-second response time that I was talking about. Some of the things we've done for them is we created and tested a disaster recovery solution. So not only formulated the plan and walked through all the scenarios, but then implemented a plan that we took a day and said, okay, the lights went out. What happens? And that was a great exercise for that customer. Implemented numerous applications to help streamline those processes. Again, taking those things that take hours and making those minutes really show our value and allow us to say, hey, this is where the service is paid for itself. Facilitating office moves and new office setups. I mean, Steph talked about it. Well, first of all, moving offices is that's a big thing, but making sure that those moves go smoothly. We're always kind of that first phone call when it comes to that. But that new office setup is important. Every time a new employee starts, making sure that technology is there, it works, it's on their desk, they can log in. There's nothing more frustrating than the computer's there and they're like, well, I can't log in. It's that first impression that not only the HR function can help out with, but the technology can help out with, that first impressions last a long time. So if you don't have your stuff together on the front end, they're going to go, well, what else don't they have their act together on? And that's where we help with those new office setups, and then conducting those regular business meetings with them to help them improve. Second client example is, this is a specialty contractor that we work with. They have an internal IT department. And so I wanted to highlight that because we have helped then assist those internal IT with escalated tickets. We typically come in and find out where that internal resource or internal team, where their skill set is, and find out what they don't want to do. And then once we find that out, we're able to say, okay, great. We're able to take all those things that you don't like. That's what we're going to focus on. In this case, we helped out with escalated tickets. So those kind of the more complex tickets, and those they have a very large IT infrastructure with a lot of complex moving parts. We have our enterprise engineers helping out with those projects, assisted with those cybersecurity and compliance, making sure they were double checking, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's from a cybersecurity perspective. Help them with their core application upgrades. A lot of companies have big applications that need to be upgraded, that everybody's scared to touch things. Those core application upgrades are things that we help with and make sure that we plan those so that there is no unnecessary downtime. And then we also helped with the creation of a custom application. We scoured the market and found that there wasn't an application out there that they could buy off the shelf. We helped them create something that helped from a prefabrication perspective, that saved them a ton of time and a ton of money and gave them a competitive edge over their competitors that has helped them win a lot more business. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Steve. I think, do we have a set of questions at the end of this? We're going to do a polling question. So for those of you who get CPE credit and want that CPE credit, here is the CPE poll. It's real simple. Are you still listening? Yes or no? That'll make sure that you can get credit. So it sounds like everybody got 100%. Everybody was listening, so I'm really proud of this group. Thank you. Check the box, you get the credit. Going to kick it over to Steve, who's going to talk about some of the outsourced accounting functions.
Yeah, so thank you. Very similar to the outsourced HR and outsourced IT. we're trying to replace a core or a core function of the back office of our clients. We want to replace the accounting role at our clients through outsourcing, and we want to do that by using a slice of various skill sets and price it as though it's one person. When do I consider outsourcing my accounting if I'm a business owner or a C-suite executive at a company? I think there's a few things that we all have seen with clients in this building, and a lot of our clients have probably experienced along the way. Some slow or late financial reporting is a key indicator that maybe it's time to kind of revamp our processes or potentially look at outsourcing our accounting. Inaccurate financial information is another one that can be really troublesome. You want to have really accurate, really timely information when it comes to finances so that you can make good decisions as a business owner. And having those two get off the rails, whether from an inaccuracy standpoint or a timing standpoint, can really put you in a spot where you make poor decisions based on the information that you're getting. We've seen a lot over the last 3 to 5 years of transition in the accounting world. And we've seen a lot of people retire, quit, move on, take a different job. And so this turnover and this churn in this role has really put companies back. And we see that a lot where I want to do this reporting with my accounting, or I need this kind of report, but we keep losing our accounting person and we keep having to reset and get back up to baseline reports before we can go further and look at different KPIs that we want to look at for our business, before we can look at the strategic analysis that we need from a cash flow or income perspective. And so that transition and losing people is really detrimental when you have only a couple or maybe one accounting person on staff. Kind of touched on it there, but lacking that financial strategy too, that's another way that we can identify a need for some help from an outsourced perspective. There's a lot of competent bookkeepers, controllers, and accountants out there that can help, make sure that the numbers are right, make sure that they're timely and accurate. But sometimes we're missing that higher level consultative look that says, how do we take the financial data that we have available to us and the strategy of the business and where we're going as a business, and make sure that those two are in alignment going forward. And I think that's where we can really help too. Last couple items here: rapid growth and performance measurement is unclear. Anytime that we've got changing situations that we need to measure or manage, I think that's really a time to examine the accounting function, examine the finance function. And maybe it's not accounting or finance, maybe it's data too. But in those situations, we really want to be looking at, okay, how are we going to manage this growth? Does this growth, provide the same level of profitability that our historic business has? Are we getting the same margins? When do we need to hire more people? All of these questions that are somewhat financial in nature need to be answered. And sometimes that's an indication that we need to upgrade or upskill our accounting function. So what can be accounted, or what can be outsourced from an accounting perspective? I like to think of accounting in 3 buckets. There's the bookkeeping bucket, there's the controller bucket, and then there's the CFO bucket. The bookkeeping is your AP and your AR. So what you're paying people and what you're getting paid. It's making sure that all of the transactions that are going on are being coded appropriately. Is the certain type of revenue being labeled correctly? Is the certain type of expense being labeled correctly? Are we doing that on a daily basis? Is that happening, in real time? Those are questions that we should be asking of our bookkeeping team, if we have a bookkeeping team, or our bookkeeper if it's an individual. The reporting or controller level accounting function basically takes all of that data, all of that transactional information, and combines it into reports, which in our world look a lot like what we call financial statements. And that's typically the report that you expect from a controller, from your accountant, is to produce a traditional financial statement set, which includes a balance sheet, income statement, and a cash flow statement. That's an important piece of the puzzle, and that helps keep accounting on track. And closing the books, making sure that the balance sheet balances every month is something that needs to happen. in order to make sure that we are on track from an accounting perspective and we have tied out balances so that we don't get off the rails in the future. This function is really where we see a lot of need. We have a lot of clients that have competent bookkeepers that are able to keep up on the transactional accounting, and they get to the end of the month and there's no close, there's no reconciliation, and maybe we don't even produce financials on a regular basis because we don't have the expertise. And so that's where we can help kind of fill the gap as a rent-a-controller, so to speak, and help with that. The last piece is that CFO advisory, and that's really where you're going to get that coaching, you're going to get that strategic look, you're going to use the data available to you, to your business from a financial perspective to further the organization or business. And so that's really where we feel like outsourcing can be a really good opportunity to kind of take the next step from an accounting perspective, take the next step from a finance perspective, and make sure that the information that we're getting from those numbers, from that data, is really helping us analyze complex situations, further the strategy of the business, and make sure that we're in alignment. So those are really the three areas that we see outsourcing. Again, it's to back it up a little bit. We can fill that bookkeeping role, we can fill that controller role, we can fill that CFO role. From our perspective, we like to try to fill all three roles at once. We want to be your accounting team. And it's important to us that we have different skill sets to accommodate different parts of this process. And by hiring an outsourced provider rather than an individual, you get a slice of different skill sets rather than one person who's maybe really good at one aspect of this. Client example of our accounting group here, we had a law firm that had 25 lawyers, didn't have good financial information, and they wanted to understand how their profitability was working, were they making money. We started by getting their baseline accounting figured out. We wanted to make sure that we were reporting transactions on a reasonably timely nature. We were closing their books, we were reconciling their books. And then from there, once we built that base level, that foundational accounting knowledge and information, that we took it to the next level and we said, okay, let's look at the utilization of employees. Let's look at different client types. Let's look at different clients and how profitable we are. How quickly are we getting paid by our clients? And looked at kind of those metrics that would help us understand our business better and say, okay, as a law firm, we wanted to focus on a certain type of work because we felt like we could do that quicker and our utilization of our employees would be more reliable and more consistent. So we helped kind of coach this client into, hey, here's what type of clients are working great. Here's how your employees are doing. And it really helped them manage their workflow, manage their strategy, and make sure that over the long term, they could maximize that profitability. And like Scott was talking about earlier, at the end of the day, our goal was to help make sure that we were putting more money in that client's pocket at the end of the day when we were done. I think that wraps up for the prepared presentation. Do we have any other questions? So, does the monthly review and possible journal entries, is that a controller function? I would say that is a controller function. That's what we would expect a controller to handle, to make sure that the journal entries, the accrual accounting is handled, and to close the books and produce financials. That's the controller level job. That's what we would expect from that role.
Are we able to, is this the only way to do questions? Are we able to unmute everyone? Or? Oh, okay, got it. If you want to raise your hand and can do this verbally, Reagan can give you the mic if you've got any questions you'd rather speak as opposed to type. One of the things I was going to, so for first part of prior to Lutz, I was a client of Lutz's. And I think the thing that helped me from that CFO consulting perspective was just that validation that I'm doing the right thing from a numbers, like, are my margins high enough? am I paying people the right amount? I think that peace of mind of knowing that I'm not way above market or below market, or that I'm, the worst thing is that I'm leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
So that's the thing on the CFO piece that helped me as a business owner, really see that value of, okay, there's some changes I can make because I'm not in line with market. What else do I need to do to get there?
And I think that goes back to our earlier point on, the expertise that you get when you hire an outsourced group, whether it's the IT group, the accounting group, or the HR group. The fact that we're working with so many different clients actually is a huge benefit to the clients we are working with, because we know what those margins should be. We know what technology they should be using. We know what kind of HR situations they should expect. And so having the breadth of clients that we work with actually allows us to provide more expertise in those types of situations and provide the peace of mind and comfort to the business owner that they're looking for.
Time. Great. 46 minutes.
Do we need 4 more minutes to get CPE?
Yeah, what's the,
Please,
we do?
we need some questions. We got to be 50 minutes.
Real quick to talk about kind of what we're seeing. I know AI is a big buzzword, but if you haven't paid attention, if you haven't tried it out, I would strongly encourage you, buy a Microsoft Copilot license and just play around with it. It is absolutely worth the money. I believe it's $30 a month or $360 a year. Try that. If not, sign up for a ChatGPT account. The models of access that you get to are better and better. Some of the slower moving people in the firm, I won't name any names, but our CFO, we finally got him turned on to using ChatGPT, and he comes in every day like a kid in a candy store, excited about what he was able to have that do. So just push yourself, and more importantly, push your employees to try it out. Encourage them to do that. Yes, there's some policies and procedures that we need to get in place to make sure that we're not putting company data out there. But I tell you, don't be afraid. Embrace it more than you are afraid of it. Because it's going to continue to change businesses, and this thing is moving faster than we've seen a lot of other things move. So it's worth at least investing and paying attention to, and getting some base level knowledge of how it works. And that's another thing that we can do, is sitting down and explaining these things in simple terms and showing you examples of where other clients have done it. We've got some clients on the forefront of this that have really dramatically improved some of their operations. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today, and thanks for your time. And please feel free to reach out with any questions.